how do you give value to people, whether that be your prospects, your customers, your employees, your friends, your family members, etc.? How do you actually give value to them? Well, first, before we break that down, I want to define what value is, because in order to give value to somebody, we have to define what the word value even means. And now this is actually quite a difficult question to answer, because there's multiple definitions for the word value, whether it's a noun or a verb, etc. I'll read you off two definitions, then we'll make our own definition for the sake of this video. The first definition: noun, the regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. Verb, the estimated monetary worth of something. But yet not all value fits in the parameter of being a monetary, right? Like when you give somebody a compliment, there's no monetary value associated with the compliment. It's just something outside of that. And so for the sake of this video, we're going to define value as something that somebody else ascribes meaning to. That's how we will describe value for the sake of this video and for the purpose of the demonstration we're going to go through today. So now we know that value is something that somebody else ascribes meaning to. It now can change your outlook on value, because now value isn't about us. It's not about what are we giving, what are we giving, what are we doing. It's about them. What do they value? What do they actually take into consideration and care about? And once we can figure that out, we can give value. Because once again, giving value is something that somebody else cares about. Okay, I want to quickly break down two different types of value, because there's a huge difference between the two different types of value, and knowing when to give which one is a huge distinction you have to make in order to give value properly to people. So there's two types of value. And the value number one is perceived value. Perceived value. Value number two is consumed value. Perceived value is value that people estimate of something. Right? So the perceived value of this iPhone is $2,000. The consumed value is when you use the phone. You go, man, this phone is so useful. This phone is so efficient. This phone is so effective. This phone does everything I need to do. There's two different types of value. And the way I look at it is perceived is what happens before you consume. However, if you want to really give value to people, you have to give them consumable value, which means that in order to give somebody value, true, real value, not perceived value of oh, wow, that call sounds so cool, or that car looks so amazing. No. Real, actionable, tangible value that impacts somebody's life, you have to get them to consume it. Which means if we're trying to give value to somebody, we have to optimize for consumption. I'll say this again. If you want to give value to somebody, there's two things you have to do. Number one, you have to optimize for consumption. And number two, you have to give them something that that person actually values. So value isn't about what you value, it's about what they value. It's what they ascribe meaning to. And number two, it's can they consume it? Okay, so now we've defined those parameters of what value is, the two distinctions between the two different types of values, and then how we're going to give value. Let's talk about how you can give value, right? How can you give value to somebody? Is there one way? Is there 10 ways? What is the best way to give value? Well, first I want to start off with saying that value isn't just confined to monetary things or services or products or goods, etc. Value isn't just confined to giving somebody a phone or giving somebody a bunch of money. Value isn't confined to those things. As a matter of fact, if I give you a compliment right now and I say, hey man, you're so hardworking and I admire your work ethic and your passion and your drive for what you're doing, let me ask you this. Would you value that if I said that to you? Well, I'd argue a lot of people probably would. And so that shows us that value doesn't have to just be money, products, etc. Value can come in the form of anything. It comes in all shapes and sizes, right? Value can simply be a compliment. So that changes the game a little bit when it comes to, well, how do you give value to somebody? Because it doesn't have to then be something. So let's break that down. The first thing we have to know, if we're going to give value to something, and I'll repeat this over and over and over because it's so important, is we have to make sure the thing we are giving, okay, so we have to give something to somebody, is something that that person actually values themselves. Okay, and once again, value just means they ascribe meaning to it, which means we have to give them something that they actually think is important or have meaning associated with it. Which means that in order to give value to somebody, we have to know what they like or what they want, etc. Which means that we have to do a bit of research on the person. So the first step in giving value starts with researching the person you are trying to give value to see what they value. This is actually a very common method that people use when networking, right? I heard this, granted this is a bit flawed, but the story a long time ago of this guy who really wanted to meet this like high level serial entrepreneur, CEO, etc. And he found out that he was a really big fan of like this football team. And so he went out there and bought this guy like a football jersey of his favorite football team, yada, yada, yada. And no one had ever done anything like that before because they're always trying to do like business. But this guy thought out of the box and thought like, what does this guy value? Gave him something he valued and ended up getting an interview with him, or something along those lines, which is pretty cool. Which shows us that like, once again, this guy's worth billions and this guy gave him a jersey. A jersey versus billions. Most people are like, oh, if I need to network with a billion, I need to give them another $1 billion and work for them for free for the next 70 years and then maybe they'll talk to me. No. Value is something that somebody ascribes meaning to, and that person really cared for that team. And so when somebody went out of their way to find out what their favorite team was and give them that jersey, that meant a lot. So I hope I've got your brain cells, tingling and moving and fired up, thinking of different ideas of things you could do. But there's one more thing we got to talk about, which is the consumed part, which I think is arguably the most important part. Is the consumed part, because you could give value to people all you want. Give them a free website or a free video or a free service or a free product or a free Google review campaign or a free story lead post or a social media following, which for context are all great ideas. But if the person doesn't consume those things, aka use them, do they get value from it? Let me give you an example. Have you ever got something for free from somebody, whether that's a PDF, an SOP, a lead magnet, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a product, whatever, okay? I assume the answer is yes. Let me ask you a question. Did you use that thing? Now, for some of you, you may say yes. For some of you, you may say no. Here's the thing. With the people that said no, let me ask you this then. Did you get value from that person giving you that? Well, you could argue, yeah, I got a bit of value. I got perceived value because I got given the thing. But did you really get the value? Well, no, because you didn't consume it. So in order to truly give somebody value, and this is the best type of value, the value that has a real impact, the value that moves people, and the value that makes a difference is consumed value, not perceived value, means we have to optimize for consumption, which means we have to make our thing that we are giving as consumable as possible to increase the chances that the person can get value from it. Now, as for how to do that, that's the beautiful part about being an entrepreneur, is you get to figure that out. But the point and the moral behind this is that you need to do and optimize whatever you're giving. Okay, once again, value is about giving, all right, for consumption. That's it, for the person to use it. Because if you could give out free value all you want, but if the people don't use it, it doesn't matter. Right? If the people don't use it, it doesn't matter. So you can make the best free course in the world. You can make the cure to cancer for all I care. But if you don't give it to anybody, it doesn't matter. You aren't giving value. Another example I'll give you is making the cure to cancer and not giving it to anybody is useless. You're not giving value. Another example of not giving value is making the cure to cancer, giving it to people, but giving it to people who don't have cancer. What the fuck? And so you see how, you can make value and not give it to anyone, and then you don't actually give anyone value. And you could make value and give value, but give it to the wrong people, and then you still haven't really given value. And so the point I'm trying to make is that there's multiple ways in which we can kind of fuck up, right? Like in this, I guess example I've just given you, you could make it and give it to people. If you give it to the wrong people who don't value it, you don't give them value. And so even though you made the cure to cancer and it's phenomenal, you're like, oh my God, I'm giving the cure to cancer to people. I must be giving them so much value. The people you're giving it to don't have cancer. And therefore, they're not consuming it. They're not using it. They're not getting value from it. Which means what you're doing, even though it's actually the best thing in the world, is useless. And so just a reminder that you have to make sure that one, you create something that people value. Then you got to give it to them, and then you got to make sure they use it. And so in this term of give something people value, you got to make sure if you make the cure to cancer, you got to give it to cancer patients, not just people who have a headache, because that they won't value that. They'll be like, man, this is awesome, this is cool, and you'll think they value it, but that's perceived value. The perceived value is cool. You're like, oh my God, cure to cancer, awesome. But the consumed value is nada. It's zero because they didn't use it, and therefore the real value has gone missing. So I hope I've gone enough into the to the tactical side and also kind of like the theoretical side of how to give value to people. And I hope I've kind of got your brains, triggering and firing on all different cylinders on how you can give value to someone. But I'll end it off with this. Value isn't confined to money, products, services, etc. Value can be anything that the other person ascribes meaning to. So your main job is to figure out, what do they care about? What do they value? And then give them that in a form in which they can use it so they can actually extract the value from the thing you are giving. It doesn't matter what you do. You could give compliments, you could follow people, you could make them free things, you could help them out for free, you could give them stuff. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as the other person ascribes value to it, ascribes meaning to it, and actually uses it. That is how you properly give value to people. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to learn more about this whole giving value thing, you can join my free Valuepreneurs community, where I teach you every single day how to give more value to your prospects so that you can have them coming to you. Click the link down below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.